Hello and welcome to Frankly Speaking, where we examine the region's biggest stories with the leaders shaping them. I am Katie Jensen. On this episode, we're joined by former Lebanese Prime Minister, His Excellency Fouad Siniora, who led Lebanon through the war and remains a leading voice on reform and restoring state authority. We discuss the war waged by Israel and ask if Lebanon can negotiate from a position of strength. What happens if Hezbollah refuses to disarm, and who ultimately decides how far this conflict goes? Your Excellency, thank you for joining us today on Frankly Speaking. Now, you were one of the architects of the Taif Agreement, which ended the Lebanese civil war. Today, there is talk of a possible deal with Israel, but Lebanon remains deeply divided. Hezbollah is heavily armed, and Israel is negotiating while continuing strikes on your country. Frankly speaking, what chance do these negotiations really have, and what would success actually look like?
Well, good day, Ms. Jensen, and thank you for hosting me. Well, what we can see up till now is that there is a ceasefire that has been declared by the United States, but effectively there hasn't been a real implementation of the ceasefire. It's true that Israel, after the Black Wednesday of the 8th of April, Israel stopped bombarding Beirut, but actually is still bombarding fiercely all other parts in the country and destroying lots of towns and villages in the south and elsewhere. And as you know, this is quite essential and mandatory to have a ceasefire before starting the direct negotiation that Lebanon has already approved to carry on with this process of negotiation with Israel. So it is very important now that the United States to complete what it has started to have as a ceasefire in Lebanon. Otherwise, things will not move from there. It is very important to have the process of negotiation to take place so that the process will entail effectively a complete withdrawal of Israel from all parts of Lebanon that it has occupied, to stop the bombardment and the destruction that is really inflicting on Lebanon, and to allow the Lebanese who have been forced to leave their towns and villages to go back, and at the same time ultimately to have a process that will lead ultimately to peace. But this is a long process that would have to really carry on all what is necessary to have a peace that can be done with the help of other Arab countries. So Lebanon can go to peace hand in hand with other Arab countries that is necessary for having a peace in the Middle East.
And I think you raise an important point there, because the negotiation process is essential, but many in Lebanon would actually argue that the conditions themselves aren't equal. We mentioned the fact strikes are still ongoing, civilian villages being targeted. There are some who are describing any negotiations under the current conditions as forced or unequal as these strikes continue, even during this rather shaky ceasefire. Tell me, does that put Lebanon at a disadvantage at the negotiating table?
Well, for the time being, actually, this is a decision that has been taken by the Lebanese government after having taken a number of decisions that is necessary for the state to prevail all over Lebanon, and this process has to be really helped. It is not enough what has been done by the United States up till now, and we have to understand that this problem that we have in Lebanon requires a comprehensive look and approach so that a real solution can be achieved. Effectively, so far, a part of the Lebanese people are not in favor of having direct negotiation. Nevertheless, the Lebanese government and the president have taken a decision, and they have to be helped in this respect, and help not only them, to help Lebanon. In effect, this process can succeed if all the, let's say, components of the process are being provided. What I mean by this is that Lebanon should be helped politically. The Lebanese army has to be helped, and the Lebanese government has to extend a hand to all the Lebanese communities, so that they really believe that they are really proceeding towards a real ceasefire leading ultimately to peace. And this in fact can be done, but provided that all components of this process are respected and provided.
Well, let's talk about that in detail. We've seen President Ayoun with a very strong line saying we have two options. We either let the war continue and face the ongoing humanitarian, social, economic consequences, or we negotiate. However, even if the negotiations are successful, the central issue remains Hezbollah. Now, Hezbollah refuses to disarm. If they refuse to disarm, what can the Lebanese army or internal security forces realistically do? Are we not risking internal conflict or even a return to political violence, as Lebanon has seen before, including the assassination of the late Rafik Hariri?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you. I want to remind everybody who is watching that Israel was occupying Lebanon for about 18 years, and they could not manage to disarm Hezbollah and to remove Hezbollah by force. And this is exactly something that we need to really understand, that Hezbollah, it is truly that it is masterminded by Iran, by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. But at the same time, these are Lebanese people. And we have to understand this and respect this and really find a way of really approaching the matter. We have to understand at the same time that Hezbollah is well rooted within the Shiite community. And I can guess to say that there are something like 80 to 85,000 people in Lebanon who got salaries, monthly salaries from Hezbollah.
So what is the solution then? Because they are so embedded in society.
85,000 enrolled in its army. No, actually, Hezbollah, as you know, is a body that comprises so many activities. Besides the let's say the military side, they have social, educational, medical, all sorts of
so
institutions.
What can be done then?
So this is something that we have to understand, and it is not in the interest of Lebanon. Sorry?
I was saying, what can be done then? Because I agree with what you're saying.
It is not in the interest of Lebanon to think that it is. I mean, the government has to show that it is really extending a hand to Hezbollah and assuring Hezbollah that what it is doing is in the interest of the Shiite community and the people of Hezbollah and all the Lebanese. And it is doing everything that it can to really make them go back to their villages and to assure them that the south and other parts of the country are being reconstructed. And all of this should be done in a way that everybody feels that he goes back to be under the responsibility of the state of Lebanon without any feeling of being hated or mistreated or anything of the sort. So this is a process that we need to do it ourselves, that the Lebanese government has to do this process, and it has to be assisted.
Sure, but you face your own challenges with Hezbollah during your time in power too.
There are
Because I feel like that's a nice idea, but how it works in reality.
I was trying to say that there are three approaches that...
Sorry, please continue.
Yeah, I mean, it is how to be implemented. One is that the Lebanese government has to show that it is firm in all the decisions that it has taken so far in August 2025, and the latest was on the 2nd of March of this year. All this that the state is going to be in charge, and secondly that the government is using wisdom, adopting wisdom in approaching the Lebanese at large and the Shiite community, that finally they have to enroll under the responsibility of the state. And at the same time, it has to be done in a very intelligent manner. So all these matters, they have to be exercised by the Lebanese government, but the Lebanese government has to be provided with the tools in order to carry on this process.
Well, let's talk about
you have now a situation where the president and the Lebanese government are determined to implement this process. So this is where we are now.
Okay, let's talk about some of those tools, because that assumes that there is protection for the state if tensions escalate internally. Tell me, are you aware of any credible security guarantees provided by the US or the international or Arab communities on that front, be it to protect President Ayoun, Prime Minister Salem, or to provide support to the LAF?
It has been proven all over, everywhere, every time, that the peaceful approach is less expensive and less painful at the end of the time from resorting to a military solution. I think the Lebanese government deserves the support, and I think this is something that can be worked with the help of the Arab countries, but at the same time the United States has to play a very essential role in doing so. And I think this is let me tell you, I mean, what President Trump is doing now, he's trying to negotiate with the Iranians, isn't it? He has tried the military solution, and it has reached its end. I mean, now, as it appears, you see, that there can't be a way ahead with this solution if it's not really coupled with a real approach of using the negotiation in order to achieve the peace that it is needed by the United States, by the Iranians, and by the international community, as you know. The same thing actually in Lebanon. I think the United States has to play a role, has to support this process in order to help, and it saves a lot of blood, a lot of pain that may be inflicted on many. So this is the thing. I think now they have as I say, there is a real good determination on behalf of the Lebanese government, the president, the prime minister, and at the same time it helps Mr. Berre to really join forces with President Aoun and Prime Minister Salam. So this is the thing that need to be given a chance to succeed.
And that's a nice actually, idea in theory. I feel the reality is a little different.
Lebanon is a democracy.
So tell me, if those guarantees aren't clear, you're calling for more support from the US as well as Arab nations. But I think the question then becomes how far diplomacy can realistically go. Now, President Trump, we talked a little bit about his negotiations. We know he's recently invited President Ayoun to meet Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu directly in Washington. Now, you've previously said such a meeting would be premature, but tell me, how likely is it that happens eventually? And ultimately, what is the end game here? A normalization deal, a non-aggression pact, or a defined border agreement?
Yeah. Well, I'd like to repeat in here that let's say the diplomatic approach has to be given a chance after a lot has been done on the military side. I mean, Lebanon has suffered a great deal. and there is a large number of displaced people. About 20% of the Lebanese people have been displaced, and there is quite a large number of people dead, including children and women. So now it has to be given a chance. But where do we go from here? What we really need to go is that to have a ceasefire and to respect actually the 1949 truce that was achieved and what was really provided by the Arab Peace Initiative. Let me say something in here that might not be liked by some people, but I strongly believe that Lebanon cannot go to peace alone with Israel. You know, this is a problem that dates back to about 80 years. And this is something very important to work for, honestly, and with great determination, that we should go to peace in the Middle East. And to do so, Lebanon has to be helped and cannot really be thought that it can go to peace with Israel alone. I think this is a process that requires other Arab countries, and on top of this, the Saudi Arabia. You know that we have peace between Egypt and Israel, and between Jordan and Israel. And everybody knows that this is a cold peace. It has not been really to what you call it, leading to normalization of the relationship. What we are looking for is to have a real peace in the Arab region.
And I agree with you, but I think these are very ambitious goals.
Has been
Forgive me, Your Excellency,
the core
because
objective.
Even reaching this point, you're talking about the importance of giving diplomacy a chance, but even the reaching that point really depends on the strength of the state itself. There are growing concerns that Hezbollah has over time built influence within certain state security institutions by placing or aligning personnel inside them. How serious do you think this risk is to the integrity of the Lebanese state and their ability to negotiate? And what concrete steps are needed to restore full independence?
What I have tried to refer to is that one has to really provide all the necessary components of achieving peace. You cannot really say that I want to achieve peace and without really providing the solution. I mean, if the people in Lebanon are not sure they are going to go back to their villages and that Israel is going to really withdraw from the occupied territories and to stop its attempts to have a certain yellow zone and red zone and everything of the sort, this is not helpful at all. But I mean, what we have to do is that there is a certain objective. And then one has to see what are the requirements to really achieve that. If you don't provide the requirements, how can you say that this can't work or it may not work? You have to do everything to provide the necessary components so that ultimately you can proceed successfully towards achieving this. What I meant to say is that now we have an opportunity, and there has been an important decision that was taken by the Lebanese government and by the president to start a direct negotiation. This hasn't had taken place, let's say, in between Lebanon and Israel since 1983. So definitely there has been an agreement regarding the exclusive economic zone between Lebanon and Israel, what was quite essential. But I mean, now we have a situation of direct talks. And this, we have to build on it and to give time for the people to digest it. And at the same time, move quickly towards the implementation of these requirements, i.e., first of all, is to have a proper and a respected ceasefire. Not like the ceasefire that has been taking on now It's every day, it is killing and so on. Definitely, it requires giving the Lebanese army the support and giving the Lebanese government the political support and the economic support to do so. So all these requirements, despite the fact that some people, this is quite to say, this is expensive. My answer to this is that all over the years, the peaceful solutions was definitely much less expensive and much more rewarding than the military solution.
Oh, absolutely. And I take your point there as well. But at the same time, the debate has become increasingly polarized. Some Hezbollah supporters have described negotiations with Israel as an act of treason. There have been loyalists launching a smear campaign against President Aoun and Prime Minister Salem. So if you could address these critics directly, what would you say?
What would I say about what?
About the Hezbollah supporters who've essentially accused Lebanese politicians of an act of treason for potentially negotiating with Israel after such a long time. You mentioned it's an opportunity to make history, but many Hezbollah supporters do not feel that way.
Well, yeah, let me say this way. Definitely, each party would like to really accuse others of treason and the like. Let me put it this way clearly. Lebanon is a democracy, and Lebanon has a constitution. And I believe that the president and the prime minister and the government are respecting the constitution because it really specifies how decisions are taken by the cabinet, by the Lebanese government. The constitution specifies clearly that to carry on in negotiating in terms of achieving a certain treaty, this is in the hands of the president in coordination and agreement with the prime minister. So this is specifically stated in the constitution. Anybody who says that he is not entitled and something of the sort is untrue. So this is one. Secondly, the decisions that are taken by the government and by the president, definitely according to our constitution, that normally decisions are taken by consensus. But if it is not possible to achieve consensus in the cabinet, then it is by voting. And by voting, it's either in certain matters, it is 51% or 2/3. So this is exactly the situation. Anybody who says that the Lebanese government is not entitled, the president is not entitled, anything of the sort is untrue. And to those actually who have been using these arguments, I can tell you that a question should be raised to Hezbollah and say, did you ask anybody before really starting the war on the 23rd, on the 8th of October 2023? Did you ask anybody or got the approval of anybody when you decided, and in spite of the assurances that Hezbollah has given to Nabi Berri, the speaker, that he is not going to really interfere or to launch any rockets against Israel on the 1st of March this year? They did not ask anybody. They did not get the approval of anybody. To the contrary, they took the initiative of launching these rockets on their own. So whoever is going to really accuse the government or the speaker about this, definitely the question has to be raised to them.
Absolutely, and we've heard a similar message from President Aoun, haven't we? He recently said that those who drew Lebanon into the conflict were the ones committing treason. But Your Excellency, you've been quite clear on your position, the need for reform, the need for change. But I have to wonder, when you were Prime Minister between 2005 and 2009, you governed alongside Hezbollah in a unity government. Now, there are critics who would say you didn't confront them then in the way you're now suggesting should happen with Prime Minister Nawaf Salem. How do you respond to that?
Well, actually, the decisions that were taken by Salam's government regarding the authority and the unquestionable right of the government to take the decisions. I think these decisions were taken by the cabinet, and the majority of the members of the cabinet approved all these decisions that were taken by Salam's government, whether it is on the 5th of August and the 5th of September of last year regarding the authority of the state, and that it is not allowed that the Hezbollah to carry on its military and security decisions in the country, and that the decision of war and peace has to be taken by the Lebanese government, and that it is the sole authority of the Lebanese state to negotiate on behalf of Lebanon. So these are decisions that are completely constitutional, that what has been really done by the Lebanese government.
But we know the reality is different. We see that the Lebanese state does not have that full power. But let's talk a little bit about the current situation on the ground as it stands today. How do you view Israel's actions to establish what it's described as a buffer zone along its northern border? What are the implications that it could have for Lebanese sovereignty and long-term stability?
Things, if they continue, definitely Lebanon is suffering most. And definitely Lebanon has been suffering from a great deal of hardships over the past few decades. I mean, over the past 5 decades, Lebanon has suffered from 6 Israeli or seven Israeli, let's say, invasions. And Lebanon has suffered from a very serious economic crisis, and has suffered other, let's say, internal wars and strifes and so on. And this is a country that deserves actually saving, and definitely what it really represents in the region. It is something as an example of convivencia and the living together among different communities. So this is something that really deserves, the world has to really give attention to a country that has suffered a great deal over the past 5 decades, and really requires that somebody has to rescue the Lebanon from really collapse. And it's not in the interest of anybody to Lebanon to collapse. There is definitely lots of problems, yes, but I mean, it is not only the Lebanese to blame for that. I'm not saying that they are not to be blamed, but I mean, there are other factors that has really worked against them, including the intervention from so many in the affairs of Lebanon, or trying to use Lebanon as a battleground, or a post office box to send messages from Iran to the United States. So all these matters have to be considered in order to really help this country to be rescued.
I mean, Your Excellency, you're very optimistic about what needs to be done.
As is now.
But
so there is.
But I want to press you specifically on the buffer zone, because I think there's big questions at the moment about whether this zone is temporary. Tell me, do you believe Israel will ultimately withdraw from these 55 villages, or is there a very real risk that this becomes a prolonged presence?
Well, first of all, I'm not only optimistic. I think what I say, I am determined so that I want to be optimistic. I'm not just hoping for that. I think what we really having in Lebanon is determination. Now, whether Israel has the intentions, and I really think, let me tell you something. This problem, what we are talking about, the Palestinian problem, and the presence of Israel within this region, it has been going on for eight decades now, with no solution. And there won't be actually a permanent, a durable, and just solution if we don't really work for that. And Israel cannot really say this war didn't work, probably other wars would. And I personally don't believe anymore using force in order to achieve peace. I think we have to resort to diplomacy, to a proper let's say, negotiation, so that we can save the whole region. But if somebody believes that he can impose on the region such let's say an imposed peace on his terms, I think it won't work. You see, this is Israel is an island in a sea of Arabs, and you have an opportunity where is a real willingness among the Arab world to really start a process leading to a permanent, just, and durable peace. This is a golden opportunity. If somebody wants to save himself from being less persecuted in his country, I think this doesn't really help him or help his country. It is high time to really look at things from a point of view of finding an opportunity in this crisis.
So speaking
there is a way of drawing this opportunity from this crisis that we have, and I think it can be done. It's not enough to say it won't work or some people want to work. I think we have to try, and I repeat once more that it is definitely more rewarding and less expensive.
I couldn't agree more. Let's talk a little bit about that, because what you're saying is certainly going to be putting more weight on diplomacy and regional support. And we are seeing renewed diplomatic engagements from countries like Saudi Arabia. They've had senior level contacts and outreach to Lebanese leadership. Tell me, how would you evaluate the growing Saudi role and its impact in stabilizing Lebanon?
Saudi Arabia has been always, you see, since the independence of Lebanon. Let me tell you, going to history, and let's talk about 1943, when Lebanon has its independence from France. Before that independence and afterwards, the role that was played by Egypt and by Saudi Arabia was quite essential. And they really both understood the real value of a country of convivencia, of the living together, of having all confessions in Lebanon, a country in which we have a Christian president among all the Arab countries. Saudi Arabia has played a very important role, and in so many times when Lebanon really suffered most from the various let's say crises that it had, and the various invasions that really made by Israel, and even after the interference of the Syrian regime during certain times, and after the interference of the Iranian regime and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, I think the role that was played by Saudi Arabia was always supporting Lebanon, supporting its democracy, supporting its independence, and supporting the Taif Agreement. Mind you, that the Taif Agreement was approved in Taif, in Saudi Arabia, so with the great help of Saudi Arabia. And that was the message that was conveyed to the Lebanese when His Excellency Prince, the Saudi Prince came to Lebanon. He was very clear in sending the right message, that they really want a good to have peace among all the components of the Lebanese, to avoid a sedition among the Lebanese, and at the same time to have this process of negotiation, and ultimately to lead towards peace and to respect the Taif Agreement. The Taif Agreement still has proven up till now that this is the best solution that can really provide the right solution for the Lebanese to live together and to build their democracy in a proper manner.
And of course, we do understand there was a lot of behind the scenes work from Saudi Arabia, so much so that after the current ceasefire, President Aoun actually thanked all of Lebanon's Arab brothers, in particular the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. But Your Excellency, we know that external support is one part of that, but ultimately the challenge is internal. Now, Lebanon has seen repeated reform plans announced over the years, yet implementation has remained limited. What are the core structural obstacles preventing effective governance and reform today? And what would need to change to actually move from commitments to actual delivery?
Definitely, there are certain, let's say, impediments to achieve the objectives that we have set. Some of this is internal and some of it is external. But I mean, each would have to really be provided the right components for solving these or resolving these issues. And the role that was played by Saudi Arabia, historically was very important since the independence of Lebanon, together with Egypt. They have been playing a very important role in supporting this newborn democracy in Lebanon in 1943, after it was under the mandate of France. And throughout the past, let's say 80 years, more or less, Lebanon has earned the support and the confidence of Saudi Arabia, and in various instances that was quite essential. And Lebanon definitely has the benefit of the role that was played by Saudi Arabia in hosting the Taif Agreement and in providing the right solution, which was coronated by that agreement, which really included the amendments to the constitution. Now, there are certain internal domestic problems. Yes, I'm not really hiding that, and definitely the Hezbollah is now an issue to be handled, and this definitely there is some role that can be provided by what can be achieved from the negotiation that's taking place in Islamabad. This definitely rests in the hands of the Revolutionary Guard. I am saying this is an added reason to really provide the support to Lebanon, because this is something has to be let's say handled by the United States regarding the role that has to be played by Iran. As you know, the United States has started the negotiation in Islamabad with a number of issues.
Okay. But let me ask you specifically about some of the structural challenges that we see today. Because you mentioned Hezbollah, but of course there's also the economic side as well, and a number of these structural challenges. What fed directly into the financial collapse we saw some time ago. Now tell me, as a former finance minister, do you think that the financial meltdown of 2019 was inevitable? Could anything have stopped it? And ultimately, I'm sure there's millions of Lebanese people wondering, will they ever see their savings again? And where will that money come from?
It is true that every government that really was in charge since 1992 talked about reform. But not everyone has done all it can to really work for the reform. And even those who really worked honestly, sincerely, with great determination and with great hardship, there are a number of things that really precluded the achievement of reform. And reform is something that is very essential in order to save Lebanon economically, financially, and as well socially. The thing that has been going on is that throughout the period from 1992 up till now, it was not always the state of Lebanon was able to prevail all over Lebanon, because at certain times since 1992 the authority of the Syrian regime was dominant. And that was the thing that we suffered most. Prime Minister Hariri, he was the Prime Minister at that time, and I was a Minister of Finance. And we have worked heavily, but there was lots of resistance in order not to really provide the opportunity to carry on the reform. And after the Syrians really left Lebanon, they withdrew from Lebanon, we had the Iranian regime and Hezbollah authority all over Lebanon. And this is the thing that now we have a situation that has changed. First of all, the Syrian regime is no longer there. And this same Syrian regime that was provided the bridge from which actually all the support used to come from Tehran towards Beirut. And the Iranians, they used to boast about this, that they have the control all over 4 Arab capitals.
But Your
Baghdad,
Excellency,
Damascus,
if you don't mind
Beirut,
me interrupting, I want to draw you, just quickly, I want to draw you back to the financial question though, because as the finance minister at the time, it was a very unsustainable financial model, one, with very high interest rates. It was not sustainable. The reform did not happen. And as we saw back in 2019, millions of people lost their life savings. So I wonder, at what cost did this happen? And do you think the Lebanese people will ever get their money back?
I'll tell you something, is that there is no government that go bankrupt. It is the administration that is bad, that is not visionary, that is not really determined, that goes bankrupt. There is always a way how to raise money. And let me give you an example that really happened during my time when I was a prime minister. During the years 2007, 8, 9, and 10, and the 10 was the Hariri, Saad Hariri was the prime minister. We managed at that time to have a growth annually of 9 to 10% annually in a series of 4 years, in which we managed to drop the debt to equity the debt to GDP ratio from 185% to 135%. So I'm telling you this example about there is a way actually of doing so. And the Lebanese, they have proven that they can do if they want. So with it, this is something I can say that it is worth investing in. There is a way of really doing something. I cannot really claim that you can repay back every penny the depositors had, but a good deal of it over time can be really repaid.
Where will that money come from? Where will that money come from? Because effectively the middle class was wiped out.
If we have, fine. I mean, for sure, you see, let me tell you, Lebanon now have an economic problem, and Lebanon now has a problem of reconstruction. So these two things, they would require money. So again, you see, in here, if something can be provided in terms of allowing the government to go back, to be in charge, and to carry on the reconstruction problem, and to give them time so that the economy can be revived, this is a possibility. And this has been proven let's say in the years, as I said, 2007 until 2010. So there is a possibility. I'm not saying that this is assured, but I think this can be done, and it is worth investing in it. And at the same time, I repeat, it is the least expensive, because leaving a country, as you know, a problem and a disease cannot be confined in an area. It really, like the bird's flu, it flies from one region into another. Instability is the same thing. It flies to other countries. It is something that one has to, a place of danger, one has to attend to it to find a solution that helps the country and helps the neighboring countries.
Let's hope that we do see that become a reality. we have run out of time today, but thank you so much for sharing your perspective with us at what is clearly such a complex time in Lebanon, and we really appreciate your insights today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for hosting me, and thank you for your patience. And I really, we need your support actually in handling the matter of Lebanon in your all interviews with other people. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.